Hi, Jason. How are you?
Oh, doing well, Stephanie. Just another day in the session. How are you doing?
Yes, it is. Welcome to Session Spotlight. I'm so happy to have you here. Um, I've already introduced you just a little bit before you came on, so let's just dive right in. What are the top priorities for the Tri-Cities Legislative Council this session?
So we had seven policy priorities that we identified that were really the top priorities that we did after a lot of stakeholder engagement with over 24 groups across the Tri-Cities. And those were rural broadband, transportation infrastructure, economic development, higher education, and K through 12, clean energy and protecting the lower Snake River dams, proposals to increase tourism, and then taxes and spending.
Right. And yeah, you're right. That process to get to those top priorities was pretty comprehensive. So I think the council did a great job with that. And what are you seeing in Olympia right now? What's happening on any of these issues? Are you following, what are you following specifically?
So as always in Olympia, a lot's happening on a lot of different issues. This year is just a little bit odd in the sense that we can't be there and have a lot of conversations and really see what's going on. So transparency has been a little bit less than it normally is. I do believe that they're trying pretty hard to make it as transparent as possible, but really the only interaction you get is during hearings when you have a chance to testify. So what's going on behind the scenes is anyone's guess. There are a couple of good things and then some not so great things, I guess, for our priorities. But one that I was really excited to see that's been getting some legs is House Bill 1336. This was introduced by Rep. Drew Hansen. It concerns rural broadband. It was actually our top priority. I'd say at least 75% of the meetings that we held before session, rural broadband was the top issue that we heard about. And that was from everything from healthcare to education, especially given the COVID pandemic. Really having access to reliable internet is key for students to be able to learn and businesses in rural communities to be able to operate. So the issue with broadband has been that in the rural areas, a lot of the private telecom providers don't want to go out there. It doesn't make economic sense for them to do it, and so they haven't built out that system. Public utility districts and other public entities have had a willingness to do so, but they haven't had the retail authority to do so. So House Bill 1336 provides them with that retail authority so that you could build out the rest of that broadband system into rural areas. And so it's in committee right now. As you may know, cutoff is next week. So by the 15th, it'll have to get out of committee to have a chance to continue moving. But we feel really good about it. It's supported by the PUDs and a lot of the public entities, the ports and others. And so we're hoping that will move. And then some of the other ones that we've seen, this one is really just more about support for business is House Bill 1368, and that's been advancing really fast through the legislature, allocating the $2.2 billion in federal funding that we received, which would include $75,000 grants for eligible businesses, as well as a total of $240 million in business assistant grants out of that, and that's actually passed through the House and is awaiting final passage in the Senate now. And then a couple of the others, we have a low carbon fuel standard by Representative Fitzgibbon that's been getting some consideration. That would provide some funding towards transportation, but how much is unclear. But there's a lot of concern around that bill and what it would do to the cost of transportation, especially for rural areas. It hasn't been moving as quickly as we thought it might have, and they're really taking their time, giving it some due consideration. So we're happy to see that, but that would have an impact on transportation costs, and especially on more agrarian areas of the state would be hit pretty hard.
You know, Jason, I guess I do have a question about that. My understanding is that is just to create a better fuel, and it would just increase the cost of fuel, but that would not, none of the money would go to transportation, or is it just a small amount?
I think it would just be a small amount through the Department of Ecology would be put back into, not really towards transportation, but to investments in developing those cleaner fuel types and things like that. So yes and no, I guess would be the answer.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to clarify there, because I know we're also looking at a, cap and trade or cap and invest, whatever you want to call it, and also a carbon tax or fee, as they're calling it this session. So, I think gas prices are on their way up. I can just almost predict that, seeing that that's the way things are headed. Do you have any concerns there, or anything else that you want to say in regards to that?
I think we always have concerns whenever the price of gasoline is going to go up. We saw that in 2018 with the governor's carbon tax proposal, as well as Initiative 1631 that was on the ballot, both of which would have had gasoline prices go up by about 40 cents per gallon. Both were obviously defeated largely for that purpose. So I think anytime you're dealing with raising transportation costs on average Washingtonians, you're going to have a lot of pushback and a lot of concern. And as you mentioned, there are several bills that would have that effect, from the low carbon fuel standard to cap and trade to the Climate Commitment Act that Senator Carlisle has introduced in the Senate that was requested by Governor Inslee. That's the cap and invest program bill. So yeah, they've been circling around this for a couple of years now. We'll see if anything actually moves forward. Everything's still kind of in committee, so they haven't been pushing these through super fast. None of them have gotten over to the other chamber yet. So I guess that's good news, that it's being deliberative and not something that has been rammed through really quickly in the first month of session.
All right. So, hey, speaking of clean energy, what do you got for us in energy?
So energy has been touching on a lot of the things that we've talked about. After we did CETA, there isn't so much a focus on the energy or the electricity sector side. A couple things I will mention is our local senator, Senator Brown, introduced Senate Bill 5244, which would provide tax incentives for advanced nuclear and SMR manufacturing in the state of Washington. That bill got a hearing 2 weeks ago in the Senate Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee. So we really appreciate her introducing that. That would really attract new investment in these kind of groundbreaking areas to the state. Whether or not it has legs and gets anywhere in the session, I don't know, but I think it was really positive to see Senator Carlisle or Chairman Carlisle bring that up for a hearing in the Senate, and the testimony around that was great. We're seeing some bills around Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, FSEC, changing kind of its authority and its scope. One's going to have a hearing later today, and I cannot remember the number of that bill off the top of my head right now, but it's the FSEC bill. It's in the Senate Environment and Energy Committee today. And so there are some concerns around that as well, because one, we're not really sure what it intends to do. It's supposed to spur clean energy projects, but essentially it looks like it just provides a lot more bureaucracy and costs for any projects. So those seem to be in opposite directions. And then not really at the state level, but I think the biggest news that's kind of rocked everyone has been Representative Mike Simpson's from Idaho's proposal to remove the 4 lower Snake River dams that was released last weekend. And that really has gotten a lot of attention. A bill hasn't actually been introduced yet, but anytime we're talking about removing 3,000 megawatts of capacity, as well as dams that provide irrigation, navigation, transportation, that's a big concern, especially coming from a Republican who in the past was supportive of those dams. So not necessarily a state level issue, but it does really tie into our issues of, if we're going to address the climate, it's really hard to do that when you're removing carbon-free renewable resources from the grid, and ones that keep lots of trucks and trains off the road because you can barge huge amounts of goods through the river system. So that seems like 3 steps backwards without any step forward there. And so we're a little concerned by that as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All the trucks that would be on the roads if those dams came out, it's just, I can just see the CO2.
Yeah. We already have a hard time doing transportation funding in the state as it is. So
exactly.
We need a lot more.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you think our business members would be interested in knowing, or that would like to be involved with as far as advocacy?
I'd keep an eye on Senate Bill 5096, which is the excise tax on capital gains. So essentially just an income tax on capital gains. Jason Mercier would be the person to talk to at the Washington Policy Center about that. But that has been a big concern. And as you know, for the last couple of years, they've been trying to do something around capital gains by not calling it a tax, but it is a tax. So we have that fun little battle again.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. You are a fantastic chair and have really changed the Legislative Council for the Tri-Cities. And I feel like we are definitely speaking more with one voice than we ever have before. So thank you for your great leadership and for what you do for this community.
Well, thank you in the chamber for everything that you guys do. And thanks for having me on this morning.
Yeah, our pleasure. Have a great day, Jason.
You too. Bye.
Bye.